Alright, so in this video I'm going to go through the steps I took to be able to make these new bellows for this Al-Vista 5B. And as you can see, it sweeps, it doesn't get in its way, and it doesn't interfere, it looks like. So I've yet to test it besides, running the shutter. And so far, that seems to be working fine, and it's light tight, unlike my last bellows that was attached to this. I'd like to do this again in the future with some type of like a suede material or like a thin goat skin or even a pig skin of some kind. I'll have to find a leather supplier to try to get some tests, some test pieces before I actually go full ham. But for the time being, this is functional material. So let's get into the video. All right, to start off, you're going to need to get yourself binder clips. This is going to help you to keep the leather or the synthetic material you're going to be using to hold it onto the frame. A nice set of screwdrivers, flatheads, is a must. This almost every screw on here is held on by a flathead style or a flat blade style screw. Tape. Tape helps out quite a bit for holding down the material, especially when you're getting it prepped and ready before securing it. I use a 5-ounce hammer because of all the nails. They're so small. This won't do too much damage to anything. You won't put too much pressure or force. Paint marker. This is useful, especially whenever you're writing on a black material so you're able to see your marks. A couple of different types of scissors. This is just flat, normal scissors you'd get from Amazon or from the dollar store or whatever. And curved ones. These ones are good for making circular cuts or rounded cuts. These diagonal cutters are very thin, but they're perfect for wedging underneath the nails and using them to pry up. This is what I use to remove all the nails. And razor blade. Razor blade is in case you want to be more precise on your cuts. I didn't really end up using it. I didn't care about the finish because it's hidden. This is what I ended up using to cut the material. And then finally, your material. This is a synthetic leather. It's has a cloth material on one side and kind of a rubberized material on the top side that looks like leather. It's thin, only about 17/100ths of an inch. It is stretchy in one direction, but not the other. It's kind of hard to demonstrate one-handed, but it's light tight, which is all I really cared about. So I found it at Hobby Lobby. If you're looking for some material, take a pair of calipers with you and a bright flashlight and just start testing different materials that you see there. Keep it as thin as you possibly can while maintaining light tight. So, all right, let's go ahead and get started on disassembling this Al-Vista 5B. It doesn't really matter which Al-Vista you have. They're all pretty much assembled similarly. So these steps you should be able to follow. If there's something different, you can go ahead and leave me a message on Instagram or even comment below, and I'll see if I can look into how yours is assembled. But for the most part, they all pretty much go together the same. Start by opening up your Al-Vista the normal way, removing the two stationary screws. Yours shouldn't have a white background. That was just me testing the focus on mine, trying to figure out why it was out of focus. You're going to flip your front cover over. There are 4 screws on the back. Those need to be loosened up, and that will separate this. You'll notice mine has a gap. Well, it's already partially disassembled from me messing with it earlier, but yours should be flush against it. So take those 4 screws off, and then we'll continue. Once you have that part disassembled, go ahead and remove your lens. Get it out of the way. If you don't know how to remove a lens on an Al-Vista, well, here you go. Similar to a bayonet mount, there's a little bit of a tab here that fits into the slot on the front. Got a runaway lens. Right there. fits in there, twists and locks in place. That's how you remove it, so you're able to change out the waterhouse stops. The next step, as you can see, mine has a pretty gaping hole, is to get a flathead screwdriver in between this chrome piece and this black piece right here. This ring slips on and it's just held in by tension. Once you get it pried away a little bit, you can work it out by hand or work it on both sides with a flathead. Set that aside, and then the front piece can come off completely. Check your light gates on either side. This material here is usually made out of leather. I don't think it would be made out of anything else, as old as these are. But that should be still movable. If it's still movable, it should be fine. That gate's off to make sure that no light, or so that it doesn't hit the front of the bellows, because this is a bit of a sharp edge here. Not really, but over time it would damage it. So this helps to make sure that whatever it hits into has a bit of a gap and keeps it from the softer material you're going to be using. Set aside the front, and this is the business end of everything. So mine is made out of some sort of a very thin, very delicate leather. I'm sure it's only delicate because of how old it is, but it's held on by these tiny little nails all the way around. I'm going to try to save as many of them as possible and reuse them, so I don't actually have to go pull out the ones that I have. The ones I have are slightly bigger, and I really don't want to use them. But after I get these out, I'll come back and show you how to go on to the next step. Okay, good news and bad news. Good news, I got it removed. I have a template. Bad news, I lost one. It went that way, and I have no idea where. I'm also quite dirty now because of this. It's quite disgusting. So I'm going to clean up and then get back to it in a minute. One thing I should point out, I just noticed there is a top and a bottom. At least on mine, these two are closer in on the top and further away. Well, that one's in the dead corner, and this one's about on par with that. I'm guessing it has to do with the location of the mechanisms. Yeah, they didn't want to get too close to this, it looks like, so they put it here. So there is only one way this will go on, and if I mess that up, I guess it probably won't matter too much because this is fairly dead center. So it shouldn't be too bad. Just something to keep in mind whenever you go to make your pattern. So on the subject of the pattern, it is a very thin, lightweight leather of some kind of animal skin. It needs to be folded in the center to be able to make that crease. Let me get the other Al-Vista. You'll notice it on Al-Vistas and others with the cloth bellows that there's a bit of a folded in area. When I made mine for the Panorama Kodak, I had to do the same thing. You'll see I made the bellows, there's a bit of a crease there. So they're just going to have to replicate that on these as well. Now the spot where you can't be willy-nilly, you have to be as accurate as possible, is trying to get as dead center of a hole as possible, because that is where everything goes wrong if you don't. If it's too tight one way or another, it could drag and make the sweeping motion slow down. So you want to try to find wherever you're going to have your center at, cut the hole there, mock it up, and make sure it's going to be centered before you do any other cuts, just to make sure. This hole has to be centered in this frame. If not, everything's messed up. All the rest of these measurements can be, looked over But the center has to be a good diameter, one that will be able to, a good idea is the back side of this. The hole has to be the inside diameter of this hole. So cutting it, when this gets pressed back on up against the front turret, it's going in here and pressing up against this flange. So you don't want it to be bigger than that. You only want it to be the size of the inside hole here. Once you get that and you start nailing it all up, you should be pretty golden. I haven't had any issues. I did this with the Panorama Kodak. I haven't done it with something like this. The Panorama Kodak had screws, and it only had about 8 or 10 of them. I didn't do it with something with nails like this. Now, I have reused nails before on my Century View camera. It's pretty much the same thing. I have a small hammer for that. You're not using a roofing hammer. Please make sure whatever you do is to get a small enough hammer to do this. So don't be using a roofing hammer or a sledgehammer or something that'll really mess up. And you want to have something that's got some bounce to it. As you can see, I push down the table, the whole thing's moving. That way, some of the blow is absorbed by the table and not all on here. Usually that's the opposite whenever you're making something. But these are small nails. You're really not trying to put too much force on there. They're only there to hold it in place. And these 4 screws are what holds the whole assembly to the front of your Al-Vista camera. So keep that in mind. Okay, I'm trying to keep paint off of the original parts, so I just put some masking tape on the inside, and I'm going to use that to trace out the hole. What I'm using is a paint marker, so this material will be able to get, I'll be able to see where I'm going to be cutting a little bit easier than a pencil or like a black marker or something. So I'll know to cut on the outside of this circle. And now I won't have to worry about getting paint on the inside of this part. Just using a little cheap marker I got off of Amazon. And as far as how I'm going to cut these, I have some curved small scissors. I think they're used for models, like RC models and stuff like that, to help with curve cutting around like fenders and stuff like that. So, pretty basic here. I'm going to fold this in half and make a quick cut, and then go in and cut around my paint mark. Anyways, follow around like that and get your hole cut. Okay, now we're going to test fit to see how this fits on the main turret. Like a glove? There we go, look at that. Okay, we're halfway there. Okay, so the folds are technically supposed to be only right here. That's kind of difficult to do. You can try it and see if you can accomplish it, but more than likely I will give up and have it go across the whole deal. And it doesn't seem to affect my Panorama Kodak, but you know, your results may vary. Okay, new plan. Didn't like the old one. All this is being a little bit more complicated than the Panorama was. So I found out if I set my 5B to the 4 or 6 inch setting, 4-inch setting, that I can center my turret, and maybe I'll have a better chance of lining everything up. So that's what I'm doing now. That's how much you're going to have to fold it. You're going to have to test fit this multiple times like this before you make your crease, then tape it off. And then I don't know how the best way of transitioning that fold to this is going to be. So I'm going to figure that out off camera, and then I'll come back and explain myself. This may look slightly used. It's because there was a completely different way I went about this, and I realized I was wrong. So fixing my problem, this is how you will go ahead and figure out what the fold needs to be for your bellows. And this should work probably for everyone. Might actually go back and do this to my panoramic Kodak. Insert your lens and make sure that you have your collar on completely, so your bellows is basically reassembled to the lens. No plate on the outside, but just fabric on and connected like it would normally be. Next, you're going to want to disengage your partial frame and allow your lens to go to its maximum position. Fold in and hold it, then rotate it to the opposite side, fold in and hold it. Then trigger your lens to make sure it makes the full loop and that you don't have to push down. If you have to push down, you'll need to release some of your material. Do it again. So we're going to have to release some material. So have to work back and forth like this until you have a good idea of where everything needs to be. This is a small hammer I'm talking about. It's a little 5-ounce hammer. All right. It's in this